At Pluralsight, we don't just teach skills. We are building the tech workforce who deliver results fast, accelerated by top-tier content. Lead with confidence. Lead with expertise. Visit us at pluralsight.com to tap in and learn more.
Lowe's knows that saving is always top of mind, especially this season. That's why we've picked some great deals for early Black Friday. Get free select DeWalt, Cobalt, or Craftsman tools when you buy a select battery or combo kit. More tools? Why not? Plus, we've got select pre-lit artificial Christmas trees starting at $59.98 because it's never too early to think Christmas. Get Black Friday prices without the crowds. Lowe's, we help, you save. While supplies last, selection varies by location.
Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Of all the radio stations in the United States, there are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, and be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Calling us from New York, we have Tom Vinton on the phone. Tom is a retired FBI agent, also author of the book Sanctioned Treachery, Portrait of a Drug Informant, which you can find on Amazon. We'll talk about that in a moment. Tom, thanks so much for being a guest on the Law Enforcement Show. Very much appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Before we get into the details of your book, I want people to understand something. Tom is not Bobby Vinton, all right? Same last name. And I would love for people to think that I'm not old enough to remember Bobby Vinton. I'll just say this. He was big when I was a little boy. So that was a long time ago. You did a full career in the FBI, correct?
Yes, Bobby Vinton, actually one of my sons has that name. So to answer your question, yeah, I spent 27 years in the FBI, 25 of those in the New York office.
And you were big throughout the New England area, from what I understand.
We kind of coordinate investigations throughout the New England area, but our main focus was, mine at the time was organized crime and drug enforcement in New York City. They have satellite offices up in Westchester and out in Long Island also.
It's an ugly business, organized crime. I'm no expert in it, but drug game, I do know that very, very well. Before we get into details of your story, tell us about your book.
Okay, the book basically tells the story of an informant, how he's developed, and eventually at the end how he turns against the agent. I came upon this only because I did extensive work in developing and handling informants during my time in the organized crime division. And in the introduction of the book, I kind of give an example of how good agents, dedicated agents, got involved with informants and through bad luck, lack of common sense or whatever, ended up getting fired or ended up going to jail. So I take a set of circumstances, peculiarities of the different informants that I handled, and I put together a work of fiction. Obviously, taking one particular one and making nonfiction out of it wouldn't happen because of they might have relatives, although all the ones I mentioned are dead. But they might have relatives here, and also the FBI would never approve or let you write a book about an actual informant. So I took peculiarities, put them together, and to show basically what could have happened through lack of judgment or whatever reason in dealing with an informant, and how that informant, like a rat, turned upon the agent when he got cornered. So
many officers have lost their careers over this.
Yes, they did. I cite there was one situation where many years ago an agent killed a female informant who he was involved with and who threatened, I guess, to expose him. And another who worked for me in New York, who I considered the epitome of integrity, got transferred to another office, was working drug cases, got involved, took some money and jewelry, and ended up going to jail. I could go on with a couple more, but I think probably the most noteworthy, which I cite briefly, is where in Boston, where two ranking bureau officials were fired. One is jailed, is still in jail now, and that's because I think everybody has heard the name James Whitey Bulger.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it was John O'Connor was the FBI agent that was implicated and convicted and is doing time?
Well, John Connolly.
John Connolly, that's it.
Right.
By the way, I want people to understand something. Yep. I'm of Irish descent. My grandparents immigrated from Ireland. Whitey Bulger and this other guy, I don't know either one personally, but they both give Irish people a bad name. I'm just saying that right now.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of this occurs because, and I've seen it happen, where agents use the term fall in love, figuratively, with their informant.
Yeah.
They think they're a good guy. They're nice guys. They're this, they're that. But underneath it all, I think you and I know, both being in law enforcement, I've had considerable experience with informants, that the informant is a street guy. He's a survivor. He's a criminal. And he basically knows more than the person that is handling him.
And they're working an angle. Look, I remember being in the academy. And before we get lost in this conversation, because it's going to be a deep conversation, which, by the way, you don't want to miss. The book that you've written is available for purchase right now on Amazon.
Right, Amazon.com, and if you Google the title, Sanctioned Treachery, Portrait of a Drug Informant, it will come up. It's been on about, I'd say about a month now.
This is one of those angles of aspects of law enforcement that Hollywood always gets wrong. When I was saying back in the academy, they had old-timers teaching us, and I mean way back in the day, about guarding your integrity, about how you had to really be very cautious about things like taking a cup of coffee. And, of course, they use extreme examples, but in particular when working with informants, because informants were always working an angle. 95% of the ones I ever worked with were working off a charge.
Right, and that's absolutely correct. There are other angles that they use, and reasons why they become informant. Like I say, working off a charge probably is the primary one. There are others that want an umbrella. By an umbrella, I mean that they're involved in non-violent criminal activity and don't want to go to jail for it, so they cooperate against people that are involved in violent criminal activity. I give it as an example. The Mafia, La Cosa Nostra, which I worked for probably about 10 years before I got into drug enforcement. And they were members of La Cosa Nostra, one who I personally developed, a member of the Gambino family. And I was sure, I wasn't positive, but that at the time he was not involved in violent criminal activity, but he was associated with many of the other members who were. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. Many times informants tell you what they want to tell you, and they leave out other pieces of information.
They'll give you the beginning of the story and not the middle, and certainly not the end.
Right.
One of the questions I get all the time is, how can I show my support for law enforcement? We're all busy. We've got busy lives, but there's something oh so simple you can do with our Facebook page. Search for Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. And when you see a post you agree with that resonates with you, share it, especially episodes of the podcast. To do all that, just search for us on Facebook, look for Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, and be sure to click like. We're going to take a short break. We're talking with Tom Vinton. Tom is a retired FBI agent. When we return, we're going to talk more about his book. We're going to talk more about investigating organized crime, working drug informants, and more. Don't go anywhere. This is the Law Enforcement Show. I promise you, we'll be right back.
How would you like a free ebook on tips to improve your health? We're talking about tips you can use for free to add years to your life. Best of all, the ebook is free to download at lethealthy.com. When we say free, we mean free, so you can download the free ebook to improve your physical health, all while preserving your financial health. Get the ebook for free today at lethealthy.com. That's at lethealthy.com. Again, the website is lethealthy.com.
At Pluralsight, we don't just teach skills. We are building the tech workforce who deliver results fast, accelerated by top-tier content. Lead with confidence. Lead with expertise. Visit us at pluralsight.com to tap in and learn more.
Lowe's knows that saving is always top of mind, especially this season. That's why we've picked some great deals for early Black Friday. Get free select DeWalt, Cobalt, or Craftsman tools when you buy a select battery or combo kit. More tools? Why not? Plus, we've got select pre-lit artificial Christmas trees starting at $59.98 because it's never too early to think Christmas. Get Black Friday prices without the crowds. Lowe's, we help, you save. While supplies last, selection varies by location.
Back to our conversation with Tom Vinton. Tom is an author of the book Sanctioned Treachery, a portrait of a drug informant, available for purchase right now on Amazon.com. He's also a retired FBI agent. I never quite know the ranks that you guys in the federal government have, and I don't want to butcher it. What was the rank you retired from?
Well, I started up as an agent, a brick agent, they call them. And then the next step is supervisor, and then kind of a step above that was coordinating supervisor, a fancy title. And basically that was developed because I was in charge of the New York office's Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, which combined local and some other federal agencies this is started about 1982 when the Bureau received concurrent jurisdiction over Title 21 U.S. Code, which covers all of the drug violations. So that would have been it. The next step would have been go to headquarters, and after that, become a supervisor down there, come back, become an assistant agent in charge, so forth, go back down. A lot of traveling and a lot of, not traveling necessarily, but a lot of transfers, which I did not go that route.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for your service. And I understand you were, I believe, in the military before that.
Yes, I graduated from college in 1962, and the College of the Holy Cross, and I went into the Marine Corps. I went through the PLC program and spent 3 years as a lieutenant and then a captain in an infantry company.
Well, thank you for your service in both, and I know that was a time frame. I grew up in Norfolk, Virginia. My dad was a career Navy guy, and right. A lot of the kids I went to school with, I'm not going to get in a long conversation, but a lot of people I went to school with, their fathers were POWs in Hanoi in North Vietnam. That whole time period had a profound effect on me as a child and as an adult, and I think it was a big reason why I went into police work.
Well, yeah, I kind of always wanted to go into police work, although none of my relatives were in police work, and I wanted to go into the military. I'm not sure why, and I picked the Marine Corps because I thought that was the best. And after 3 years, my next, it was 1965 when I got out, my next stop would have been Vietnam. And I applied for one job, and that was with the FBI, and I got the job. I kind of felt now that, well, maybe I should have spent a year over there because I spent 30 years training, and you develop a little loyalty towards the troops. I shouldn't say a little loyalty towards the troops that you're training and so forth. So on one hand, I regret in a way not going. On the other hand, I'm probably fortunate because the shelf life of a lieutenant or a captain in a hot landing zone was very, very slim. So.
And like a lot of people that serve, and this goes for policing as well, and in federal agencies as well. It's not their call where they're assigned, and some wind up seeing lots of action, and some don't. And I've had many people apologize for, I was never in a hot firefight either in the military or in police work or any of that nature. And I always say this: it wasn't their call; it was someone else's, and we all gave some to some degree or another. Getting back to our conversation. Mm-hmm. You specialize in some areas that as I said earlier, Hollywood gets so much wrong about policing in general. They really get a lot wrong about the FBI. I worked with the FBI when I was detailed at DEA, and there's some great men and women, and their reputation has been sullied a bit lately. And that, I want to say, is primarily the admin. It's not the agents on the ground. The agents on the ground are the same dedicated people they've always been. So I don't want anyone to misconstrue that. But you specialized in organized crime. And in Baltimore, where I worked, it was a high crime area, but they never seemed to get a footing in Baltimore. Or if they did, it was such low profile. I never could quite understand why.
I really don't know. Like I said, in New York, probably Baltimore is somewhat of a microcosm of New York when you look into the politics of who's running it and so forth. But it just never seemed to get a foothold, maybe because the area was more lucrative towards certain types of violations, gambling, prostitution, drugs, and so forth. But yeah, there was plenty of crime to go around.
Absolutely.
In New York.
And back when I was a kid, there was the impression that in La Cosa Nostra, they didn't, and I hate this term, they didn't snitch. You didn't have informants. And there was a period of time where that may have been true. I doubt it, but that didn't last, did it?
No. In my time, like I said, I personally developed an informant in the Gambino family. We had informants in every one of the families, and for reasons that I mentioned before. Either it's revenge, that maybe they want money because they're not on the winning side of their family, or because they're closing in on them and they want to keep themselves out. But nevertheless, we did have a lot of informants, and that they basically used the informants to get wiretaps, and not to put them into a situation with a recording device or anything like that, because that obviously would burn them. But it was mainly the wiretaps. There's a show on Netflix now called Fear City, which is a pretty good summary of how all the 5 New York families were taken down through the direction of, at that time, United States Attorney Rudy Giuliani, and some good supervisors that I know very well in the FBI. So informants were used to pass on information in the Mafia regarding the Cosa Nostra that led to wiretaps, or led to the development of other informants. In other words, the informant tells you, go see so-and-so. He's really mad because he didn't get promoted, or he didn't get a lot of money that they made, et cetera, and so forth. So you go out and see that guy. And you pitch him and talk to him, and it doesn't happen overnight. It happens many visits, and some people like to do that. I like to do it. And I was on a squad once where we worked organized crime, and myself and another agent were detailed with strictly developing informants. I just enjoyed it. I considered it a challenge. Some agents don't like to do it. They want to work 9 to 5. They want to work background cases, and they don't get involved in that. But I enjoyed it.
It takes a certain skill set and a certain... I knew guys that I worked with. I say guys, I say this all the time. That's men and women. That were really good at developing informants. And it was you're right, it's a long, you got to be patient. It takes a while. It takes a long time to get that done. Me, I was never really good at it. I loved working narcotics. I was more of the surveillance guy, the door crasher guy, all those sorts of things. But, Tom, I guess the best definition or explanation I can give, example, is I was like the bull in a china shop. And so I wasn't exactly cut out for doing what you did. This is a law enforcement show. We are talking with Tom Vinton, retired FBI agent, author of the book Sanctioned Treachery, a portrait of a drug informant, which is available on Amazon. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Don't you hate when they do the bait and switch on you? When they tell you, check out a website, and it's free to go there, and then there's hidden charges? You won't find any of that nonsense at our website, letradio.com. It's free. It's always been free, and it costs you absolutely nothing. There's no hidden tricks. letradio.com. Check it out today. You can find episodes of the show as available as a podcast after airing on radio. They're always free, always have been, and always will be. Again, that's letradio.com, where it's always free.
My place in tech changes every day, but I don't fear the future because I'm with the leader, Pluralsight. Their online learning platform has the hands-on, expert-led courses I need to master new tech skills and create bigger impacts, so I can learn quickly and stay ahead. With Pluralsight, I don't fear what's next. I embrace it. Tap in at pluralsight.com and see for yourself.
Lowe's knows that saving is always top of mind, especially this season. That's why we've picked some great deals for early Black Friday. Get free select DeWalt, Cobalt, or Craftsman tools when you buy a select battery or combo kit. More tools? Why not? Plus, we've got select pre-lit artificial Christmas trees starting at $59.98 because it's never too early to think Christmas. Get Black Friday prices without the crowds. Lowe's, we help, you save. While supplies last, selection varies by location.
Return conversation with Tom Vinton. Tom, retired FBI agent, also author of the book Sanctioned Treachery, Portrait of a Drug Informant, which is available for purchase right now on Amazon.com. By the way, I love the title of that, Sanctioned Treachery. Did you come up with that yourself, or did someone help you with that?
No, I came up with that.
Dude, that's like a made-for-TV title. I'm like waiting for Val Kilmer and other people to jump out.
That happens. Some of the book sales have been very good lately, but through social media, my kids and so forth. So I'm hoping to publicize it a little more at this point.
All the authors I've had on, and by the way, I said this before. When I retired from police work, I thought I'd write a book because there's so many great stories that you can, and so many are so unusual. Or open an Irish tavern. Well, I didn't do the tavern. Turns out I was brilliant not to do that. And secondly, I tried writing, and just getting started was difficult. I get a page or two done and then lose interest. I just couldn't do it. My hat's off to people that can.
Well, I was kind of a voracious reader, you might say, back during my latter years in the FBI. And, reading books like, I don't know if you read Lawrence Sanders, the Anderson tapes, so forth, Nelson DeVille's books, Robert Ludlum and James Patterson, and so forth. So I said, Chief, I think I can write a book. And I bought probably almost every book you could find on how to write fiction, self-editing fiction, and so forth. And I would write it in my spare time, and every time I look over it, I said, this really isn't any good. And I'd edit, re-edit. So it wasn't something where I woke up one morning and said, I think I'll write a book. It took a lot of work, and then piecing together a lot of the idiosyncrasies of the informants that I dealt with, making a story out of it, having different twists in it, and so forth. So it was a nice project I had, especially in the winter when you can't play golf. So
I hope it does really well for you, and I hope that something comes out of it movie-wise, because the reality is we need a lot more in Hollywood that actually portrays the reality of what happens. Granted, I understand you've got to have fiction involved. They have to have drama. They have to have all these things to make it sellable for films. I get that. I understand it. But so much of what I see nowadays, especially from American producers, is just nowhere even close.
You're right. And it's, it shows shootouts going on for 5 minutes, cars exploding, et cetera, and they've gotten away, I think, from the old, if you want to call it Humphrey Bogart movies, where there were, shows what detective work is kind of really like.
Because that's really what most of it is. I try to describe police work, at least my experience of police work, to people, and I tell them, and I don't know where I got this from, but it was vast amounts of sheer boredom followed by just moments of extreme life and death adrenaline.
You're right. It's almost like an airline pilot told me once. He says, for the most part, 99% of sheer boredom, flying a plane, but be prepared for that 2 minutes of sheer terror.
Yeah, and by the way, the going up and down, adrenaline-wise, I think it really takes a toll on you psychologically and physically. I think a lot of us are much older than we appear.
Yeah. I think you're right on that. If not on the outside, on the inside.
Certainly on the inside. My wife will tell you that we have a little routine when we go out to a restaurant. She's like, she knows which seat is the right one for me. She always picks it out. And I don't know the FBI like I do police. And there are a lot of similarities. There's a lot of differences. One of the particular differences is you guys, the joke was you guys had the resources and the time. You get to pick the cases you worked on quite often. We didn't.
That's true. That's very true. We always would work long-term on one case or two cases, targeting one individual. A squad may, consisting of maybe 18 agents, might work a few small cases, but would basically target one or two individuals. And this concept came about during the time when I was in. Be honest with you, when J. Edgar Hoover was alive, everybody wanted statistics. And they realized that quality is better than quantity, and especially in the organized crime arena, you didn't want to just lock up a bunch of low-level guys. You wanted to go after the enterprise. And so the whole focus on investigations shifted at that time. And you didn't have to basically worry about inspectors coming in and say, well, wait a minute, you only got 3 convictions last year. And you say, okay, well, but next year we're going to have 20 because we're wrapping up the whole enterprise.
Gotcha. How was it for you when you were a young agent? They said, okay, you're going to be assigned to working Mafia.
Well, I kind of volunteered for it. I was assigned to a squad that involved counterintelligence, which was very slow-moving, and it wasn't really my cup of tea. I wanted something a little more, more active. And so a friend of mine was on the organized crime squad. He says, come down here. We're looking for a guy to speak to the supervisor, and that was it. And I enjoyed it. It's kind of a cat and mouse game at sometimes.
And isn't it funny how, and maybe it's just me that sees this, but when you watch any movies nowadays that involve, I'll give you an example, Goodfellas, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. It really is. I love that movie. I love the music. I love everything about it. But they always portray the FBI agents and police as absolute bumbling, stumbling idiots. Right.
Yeah.
If that was the case, no one would ever go to jail.
Right.
But
I think that's part of the media. They they want to do that, and then sometimes they glorify the bad guys, like in that movie.
Well, they do, and this will go into our next conversation. There's been a love affair, for lack of better words, I don't understand about America. It's going as far back as Bonnie and Clyde and John Dillinger. Back in those days, back in the FBI's formative early days, that I just don't quite understand.
I don't understand it either. You can go back to, like you say, John Dillinger and so forth, and then more recently, you look at John Gotti and some of his associates. They were, they're glorified in the media.
And he was ruthless. I'm no expert, but I've heard stories about some of the things that he and his associates were involved in, and they were ruthless, bloodthirsty, absolute murdering scumbags.
Right, absolutely. And you don't see it too much on the drug end, but when you see a person like, remember the name Nicky Barnes, who was a major heroin importer and dealer in Harlem, that he was kind of looked at as almost a folk hero, And I don't know how it gets to that stage from hardened criminal, but somehow it does. I'm sure if we thought about it enough, we'd come up with several other examples.
I think part of it, Tom, is that what they do is, and they're still doing it today, the news media that is, they ignore the parts of the story that make the villain look like a bad guy. And they love to make the government agents, police, federal agents, whatever, look as if they are the ones to fear. There's an old saying, the greatest trick ever played was when the devil convinced everybody he didn't exist. Well, I think that's been trumped by the greatest trick is convincing people that MS-13, the Mafia, Hell's Angels, everybody else is less of a threat than the police. Right.
I love that quote. I think, I forget the name of the movie it came from, but it's a good quote about the devil. Like MS-13, I don't believe that gets as much publicity as it should have. There are other arrests that come down that don't seem to get any publicity. And without getting political, there are certain events that have recently surfaced, and the media refuses to even look into it.
And that's one of the things. Politics and police generally don't mix. People need to understand, and I consider myself to be fairly conservative, but on some issues I'm what people consider a moderate. In other issues I might be considered a liberal, but most police I know have, and this goes for federal agents as well, have very little trust for partisan politics as a whole. This is the Law Enforcement Show. We're talking with Tom Vinton, retired FBI agent, author of a great book as well. We'll talk more about that when we return. You can find us on Facebook. Look for and like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. I'm going to let you in a little secret that's been a game changer for me with social media. You can get details at letpops.com. It's a redirect, letpops.com. It's called Chatbots. They're Meta partners, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, WhatsApp, and soon to be TikTok. You can turn those people that visit and engage with your content on social media into consumers and then sometimes customers, and you can market to them. Get details. Best of all, you can get started for free. letpops.com. That's letpops.com. Again, it's letpops.com.
Are we exposed? This is what every security team is wondering. But with vulnerabilities scattered across network, cloud, AI, and OT silos, the truth is out of reach, and attackers know it. There's a better way. Unify to defy risk with Tenable AI-powered exposure management. Tenable brings together all your security data and exposures in one unified view, giving you the attacker's map and revealing the critical paths and weaknesses they can exploit. Now your teams can prioritize intelligently, move decisively, and collaborate without friction. Tenable turns scattered work into a single proactive force. Instead of chasing noise, your team knows where to focus, gaining clarity, control, and speed to reduce cyber risk with confidence. Learn more at Tenable.com. Tenable, your exposure ends here.
At Pluralsight, we don't just teach skills. We are building the tech workforce who deliver results fast, accelerated by top-tier content. Lead with confidence. Lead with expertise. Visit us at pluralsight.com to tap in and learn more.
Lowe's knows that saving is always top of mind, especially this season. That's why we've picked some great deals for early Black Friday. Get free select DeWalt, Cobalt, or Craftsman tools when you buy a select battery or combo kit. More tools? Why not? Plus, we've got select pre-lit artificial Christmas trees starting at $59.98 because it's never too early to think Christmas. Get Black Friday prices without the crowds. Lowe's, we help, you save. While supplies last, selection varies by location.
Back to a conversation with Tom Vinton. He is a retired FBI agent. He's also author of the book, which is available on Amazon.com right now. It is called Sanctioned Treachery, Portrait of a Drug Informant. And by the way, working drug informants, no easy task, and some of them are phenomenal, some are horrible, but none of them are totally trustworthy, even the ones with great credibility. We always had to verify the information ourselves. We couldn't act. Like you said earlier, you get information from an informant and it'd be used for a wiretap because you can't go on that information alone. That's something Hollywood gets wrong all the time. Right. All the time.
Well, when we kind of not merged, but we received concurrent jurisdiction with DEA, we found that our informant policies were very different. The FBI would try not to give up an informant, use them for wiretaps, or get information regarding other people. DEA's informants mostly came from a guy being arrested and said, okay, I'm going to work off my charge. So there's no long-term informants in DEA. You had to produce or you went to jail.
And that's what we encountered. Working drug enforcement on a street level, that's what we encountered. And when I worked with the DEA, we had a little bit of informants, but most of our information was gathered the old-fashioned way, boots on the ground. It was It was old-fashioned detective work. It's shoe leather. And you didn't make the cases from the office. You had to go on the street. And there were times I left my wife and said, I'll at 8 o'clock in the morning, see it tonight at 4, and I didn't get back till 8 o'clock the next day. Because once the surveillance started and they started moving, you couldn't break off. You had to stay with it.
Right.
It's just the way it was. And that's another thing I think Hollywood gets wrong all the time as well. In your book, which is fiction derived from fact, which is the only way to write real police-type novels, if you ask me. It's either straight fiction or it's from fact, because otherwise there's too many people to be harmed. And one of the cases that I'm sure you've used for inspiration is the Whitey Bulger case.
Right. Whitey is, and of course you being Irish would know it, Whitey Bulger, the Irish name, he was part of what you call the Irish Mafia up in Boston. It was equivalent to or better than or more vicious than the actual mafia. So Whitey became an informant. He did it to to keep himself safe. He would give up every Italian that he knew, but he would not mention anything about his own activities. And the agent handling him and supervisors, they thought Whitey was so great because he was giving up people around him that when people came in and said, wait a minute, this guy's from other informants say, go after this guy, he's a killer, he's no good, he's a crime family boss, although it's Italian, they refused to believe it. In other words, the guy was so productive that you didn't want to hear about other criminal activities that he was involved in. And eventually the whole thing blew up. And the people that, when I say blew up, it came to surface that Whitey and had been doing A, B, C, D. The FBI knew about it. They let this go rather than put him in jail. And so the whole roof came down, and unfortunately, a couple of good agents, a supervisor, not using good sense and figuring that the end justified the means or whatever. Like I said, John Connolly's still in jail. The fellow, John Morris, is the supervisor who I liked. I knew him. I just could not even, as another person, you would never expect that he would be involved in condoning this stuff. And then the assistant agent in charge, I think he was fired over it. So it was a terrible mess. It was a black eye for the FBI, and where I think up until this date, it's hard for the FBI to develop a good working relationship with the state police up there.
Yeah, it takes a long time. I'll be honest with you, Tom, in my opinion, we're still dealing with the ghosts, for police that is, of Selma, Alabama and Birmingham, Alabama from the 1960s that you can't seem to break away from. So I understand. I'm not saying I condone anything, but I do understand why that's happened. One of the things that people seem to love are these conspiracy theories, and I've seen them about Whitey Bulger. They're like, well, how can the guy be on a lam and on the loose for so long? And the FBI must have known. They must have covered up. Did you encounter any of you knew the agents involved, and you were dumbfounded by it from basically what you said?
Yeah, I was. And I don't think there was no evil intention there. They weren't taking money. They weren't into this. They were just so happy and engaged in what he was giving them in cases they were able to make. They couldn't see the forest through the trees, if you want to say that. And as far as when he was a smart guy, and I think he had planned his departure with his girlfriend for when the time came. And, he was picked up out in California somewhere. And that was a major fugitive investigation. They had agents working full-time on that because it was a black eye to the FBI. The number one, he turned out to be really the bad guy, and number two, they couldn't find him. It was kind of a black eye for the FBI, and then all the publicity that went around, circled around that up in Boston area didn't do the Bureau any good. And
plus, people, no matter how much evidence they're presented, still want to believe these far-fetched, crazy conspiracy theories that so-and-so's involved. And I always say this, there's an old saying, and I think this came from the outlaw motorcycle world, is that 3 men can keep a secret as long as 2 are dead. And I'd say conspiracy theories, you mean that everyone that was approached about this, blank, blank, whatever example it is, agreed to do it and won't talk. Someone's talking. Right. And that's never occurred. There was no conspiracy theory, and the old saying is too: if you have the more people there are involved in a conspiracy, the less chance it has to succeed. Right, or even get off the ground. And that's a number one thing I say about the 9/11 conspiracy theories. Look, there's no way everybody, thousands of people would agree to this. Just, they're not doing it. Mm-hmm. It makes perfect sense to you and I, but people who believe this stuff, you're not getting through to them. So, in closing, writing your book has to help. Well, would you say who would it have to help, or? I would think it would have to help. Yeah, I think the people that would enjoy it most would be either active or former law enforcement, and it kind of gives an insight into the mentality of an informant who. Excuse me. You're from Baltimore, and you're familiar with, I'm sure, policy betting, numbers operations, and so forth, and how he evolves from
numbers operator, sees greed, becomes a drug dealer, gets caught by DEA, after they work him for a while, he gets turned over to an FBI agent, and then he decides to set up a bunch of drug dealers and so forth. And in the meanwhile, then he is involving self in actually selling her heroin himself. So, and towards the end, it all collapses on him after he sets up a mafia guy, etc. And it is something that I look at. This could have happened. It's something. It's fiction, but it could very well be a nonfiction, because I've seen cases where agents, aside the ones that got in trouble, could have gotten in trouble without the proper coaching from their supervisor, their partner, or whatever. Because you get blinded sometimes. You say, wow, this guy is a really, really good guy. He's a great guy. And you, like I said, fall in love with him. He's my guy. And you give him your phone number. He calls you at night and so forth. But underneath it all, there's a lot of larceny, I think, in the hearts of all of them. And if trapped, then I kind of cite a few examples here and in the beginning of the book. If trapped, they're going to turn on that agent so quickly, or that police officer so quickly, ruin his career, send him to jail, ruin his marriage, or whatever, and they don't give a about that.
Absolutely not. And if you allow that to happen, give them an inch, they'll take a mile without a doubt. Again, the name of your book is
Sanctioned Treachery, and the subtitle, Portrait of a Drug Informant.
It's available for purchase right now on Amazon.com. Tom Vinton, I want to thank you so much for your service, both the Marine Corps and the FBI, and for writing the book and taking time to talk to us about it here on our Law Enforcement Show. Very much appreciated.
Well, thank you for having me.
Get access to free podcast versions of the show and more on Facebook. Do a search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and be sure to click like. I'd like to thank our guests for coming on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is a nationally syndicated weekly radio show broadcast on numerous AM and FM radio stations across the country. We're always adding more affiliate stations. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, which is always free, please do me a favor and tell a friend or two or three. I'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.
My place in tech changes every day, but I don't fear the future because I'm with the leader, Pluralsight. Their online learning platform has the hands-on, expert-led courses I need to master new tech skills and create bigger impacts, so I can learn quickly and stay ahead. With Pluralsight, I don't fear what's next. I embrace it. Tap in at pluralsight.com and see for yourself.
Here for the Lowe's early Black Friday deals? You're right on time for some of our biggest savings. We're talking up to 50% off select major appliances. Plus, up to an extra 25% off when you bundle select major appliances. Holiday lights going up soon? Select ladders are up to 50% off right now. Get Black Friday prices without the Black Friday crowds. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 11/19. Selection varies by location. Select locations only. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Step into the shadows of history with the Your Town podcast. Each week, we uncover the chilling, bizarre, and often forgotten true stories that shape towns big and small, from notorious crimes to legends that refuse to die. If you love gripping storytelling, dark mysteries, and a journey into the past that feels way too real, this is the show for you. New episodes drop every Monday, so subscribe now and start exploring the stories history tried to bury. The Your Town podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.